The Eyes in the Ocean, written and narrated by Remy. Every night, something stares at me from the ocean. I'm an old man, and I live in a small house near the shore. The beach is right past my back porch. I've always felt lucky to have it. Well, until last Sunday, anyhow. I was smoking out back in my rocker, just looking at the waves crash, when I saw two strange tiny sparkles amongst the whitecaps. Intrigued, I just stared at the bizarre gems until I heard a splash, and then they disappeared. The next night, the shiny things came back, but they were closer and brighter. I hit the beach to get a closer look. I walked until the foamy surf kissed my feet. The light from the porch was weak by the water, but I could still see the glint off the two tiny stars in the sea. I swear to you, in that shadowy haze, I really did see something. Whatever was in the water looked to me like two great big black pearls, and they were big, like the size of these old gnarled fists. But up close, I noticed a couple more things, like that the black pearls were connected, but what I can only describe as a tube of slick, rubbery flesh. Its skin was colored the same dark blue as the endless ocean itself. But it was what I saw last that made me push my aching knees up the sands, away from the water and the awful things that lived inside its monstrous depths. How do I even describe it to you? Under the pearls lay a vast, formless shape in the water. It was impossible for me to reckon where the shadow stopped and the ocean began again. But from what I could see, whatever it was could have capsized my old fishing boat like a rubber ducky in the bath. But what made me fall backward before running for my gun was when the pearls began to rise out of the water. I remember hearing my own hoarse, pathetic cry of surprise, but then it's all a blur of panic and sand. By the time I got to my porch, the pearls had risen what seemed like 5 feet from the water. Despite the distance between us, I could feel their hungry gaze piercing me. I got my gun and put on coffee. Not even one eye was going to shut that night. Around 4 a.m., the pearls began to descend back before slipping under the waves. A moment later, and it was like the thing had never even been there at all. That was 5 nights ago. Every night since, I've gone out to my porch with my gun and watched the waves. I even tried to take a picture, but it just looks like I took a picture of a black sheet with some holes poked through it. The eyes, because I figure that's the only thing those awful things can be, have returned every night. For the first 2 nights, the horrible orbs would rise from the ocean and just stare at me from their watery lair until dawn. But it was on the 3rd night that the orbs started to move closer. It was around midnight when those terrible black eyes began to creep toward the shore. My sweat poured out until it looked like I had been caught in the rain, but I gripped my gun tighter and clung to the idea that fish can't walk on land. For the first 4 nights, the nightmare in the water and I whittled away the night, staring at one another. Until finally, the pearls would finally descend into the ocean's depths once more. Everything changed last night. The evening started the same. The sun went down. I went out to the porch. Then the eyes came out. It happened early, I think. It had been barely 11, and I had been swirling the beer in the bottom of the can when I heard a new noise, one I had never heard before, and instantly never wanted to hear again. It sounded like jelly being slapped against concrete and then sucked back up to do it all over again. The noise instinctively made my insides quiver. It felt like my body was reacting to an old and awful noise that man had feared since we called caves our home. My eyes shot towards the horrible squelching. For a moment, I just stared slack-jawed. I couldn't tell what I was even looking at. It seemed like some trickster god had cut out a living piece of the ocean and slapped it onto the beach before me. The creature's dark flesh appeared to undulate and move with the rhythms of the breeze. It was as if the creature's body was its own black ocean. I watched it make its arduous climb up the beach in a horrified stupor for what felt like years. After one particularly loud, wet smack, I was slammed back to attention. With a newfound spring of courage, I stepped forward, raised my rifle, and fired. There was a slight popping sound, like a water balloon exploding. Then nothing. The creature was unfazed, the black eyes still fixed on me with ravenous purpose. I fired until the clip ran dry, and then I just began to scream at it as if my words were bullets. 20 minutes later, I heard a thunderous pounding on my door. I rushed to find that it was the police. I was so relieved, but confused, as I had not called them, since I was certain they would just assume me a crazy like the others had. But before I could even open my mouth, the officers informed me they had received several noise complaints about gunfire. In a mad, jabbering rant, I tried to explain to the officers what had happened and what had been going on. They clearly thought I was insane, but followed me out onto the back porch. Once we arrived, the monstrosity had vanished back into the ocean. The officers left with concerned looks and gifted me a ticket and a summons for improper firearm usage. So tonight, I sit on my porch, my rifle leaned against the door. I know now it's useless against that thing. I don't think it likes the sand, though. I want to leave, but truth be told, I don't have anywhere to go. I could hide inside my rickety old house, peeking out from the curtains, watching and waiting as my doom lurks outside my back porch door every night, hour by hour growing more insane, until every day just feels like a prison. Then maybe one night I find out it can just slide under the door like black jelly. But I just don't see the point at my age. So, I'm going to sit on my porch and wait a while. Enjoy the stars. The end. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay safe and stay spooky.